Hi friends, this calendar year I am beginning a study of the Old Testament with my family. We traditionally have begun that study in the 5 books of Moses in Genesis, but we actually begin it with the book of Abraham. If you don't know about the book of Abraham, it was acquired by a purchase of an Egyptian mummy, and then it was translated by a seer through the Urim and Thummim. This is really cool because we learned that Abraham himself was given a Urim and Thummim, and he used it to record his own account of what happened during the creation process. If you don't have a book of Abraham yourself or access to one, you can find the link of it down below.
So I'd like to couple Abraham with Genesis so that I can have a more full picture of what was going on. Is where he begins to give us an account of the creation of this earth and the beginning. And this is where I like to start in Abraham's book, because Abraham comes before Moses in the timeline, as we all know. And when we get into Genesis, then we'll have this context of these people. So if we can know that Genesis, it was the first book of Moses, and there are 5 books of Moses. And this record is of the next prophet or next dispensation after Abraham and his people were sent through Israel, and his son Joseph being sent into Egypt and coming in bondage to the Egyptians and the pharaohs. The book of Abraham came from a translation from Egyptian writings that were written on a papyrus scrolls and were a part of a selection of 4 mummies with several scrolls. And so a man named Michael Chandler in 1835 came and brought these mummies and scrolls from Egypt and brought them to Ohio, and members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints at the time purchased those mummies and scrolls, and later Joseph used the Urim and Thummim to translate this record, and it was named the Book of Abraham, and it was written from his own writings while he was in Egypt. And this book has 3 of these facsimiles, and there is an explanation with each of them. They are very fascinating, and they could be studied for a long time. The first chapter tells the story of Abraham while he was in the Egyptian empire, while his father was a priest, and is fascinating because he starts off by telling us how he became a rightful heir and a prince of peace and a high priest. And he goes into the story of how his father had left the order of the Holy Order of God and began with child sacrifice. So they were involved with this sacrificing of children to their gods. And they desired to seek his life because he was standing up to that falsehood. And this is so interesting with today's story of what's going on and with people trying to stand up to the evil child sacrificing. And anyway, and he goes on and tells about Egypt's status, what's going on there. And in chapter 2, he teaches us of his experience coming face to face with the God of the Old Testament, Jehovah, who is going to be born as Jesus the Christ. This is what Jehovah said to him: I will make of thee a great nation. I will bless thee above measure and make thy name great among all nations. And thou shalt be a blessing unto thy seed after thee, that in their hands they shall bear this ministry and priesthood unto all nations. And I will bless them through thy name, for as many as receive this gospel shall be called after thy name, and shall be accounted thy seed, and shall rise up and bless thee as their father. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee. And in thee, that is in thy priesthood, and in thy seed, that is thy priesthood, For I give unto thee a promise that this right shall continue in thee, and in thy seed after thee. That is to say, the literal seed, or the seed of the body, shall all the families of the earth be blessed, even with the blessings of the gospel, which are the blessings of salvation, even of life eternal. It's so amazing because we are learning from his own record about the covenant he made and received with God and Jesus Christ, and the gospel, this preparatory gospel, even before Christ was born, And that can prepare us to understand what has happened in the history. In chapter 3, he goes on to tell us what he saw when he used the Urim and Thummim, and how he saw the stars, and he saw the place where God dwells. It's so beautiful. And in chapter 4 is where he begins to give us an account of the creation of this earth and the beginning. And this is where I like to start in Abraham's book, because Abraham comes before Moses in the timeline, as we all know. And when we get into Genesis, then we'll have this context of these people. So if we can know that Genesis, it was the first book of Moses, and there are 5 books of Moses. And this record is of the next prophet or next dispensation after Abraham and his people were sent through Israel, and his son Joseph being sent into Egypt and becoming in bondage to the Egyptians and the pharaohs at that time. And when that led Moses to, in his journey 40 years later, to escape and go out into the wilderness and eventually find God again. Here he, in Genesis, is teaching us of this account of what happened from the beginning. So I love to couple Abraham with Genesis so that I can have a more full picture of what was going on.